The wind outside howled through the broken fences of the small human farm, dry dust blowing into every crack of the lonely wooden house. Inside, Mark sat at the table, staring at the unpaid bills scattered across the surface. He was tired, his hands rough from endless work, his heart heavy from raising his little daughter, Lily. Alone since her mother passed away 3 years ago. Every night he promised himself things would get better, but every morning the struggle looked the same. That evening, as the storm grew worse, Mark heard a soft knock at the door. It was strange. No one ever came this far out at night. The nearest town was miles away, and travelers avoided this dusty part of the colony world after dark. He stood up slowly, the creak of the floor echoing in the quiet house. Lily peeked from behind the hallway, her small eyes wide. "Daddy, who's that?" she whispered, clutching her old stuffed bear. Mark grabbed his worn plasma tool, a poor excuse for a weapon, and opened the door just a crack. Lightning flashed outside, showing a figure in a dark cloak standing on the porch. Rain poured down her shoulders, and for a brief second, her face caught the light, pale, wrinkled and not human. Her eyes glowed faint silver, and her voice trembled as she spoke. "Please, I seek shelter. Just for the night." Mark froze. An alien, an old one, here at his doorstep on a stormy night. Something about her presence sent a chill down his spine. He had heard stories about alien drifters, scavengers, thieves or worse, but this one looked fragile, almost broken. Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, she's cold," she said softly. Mark hesitated for a moment that felt like forever, then finally opened the door wider. "Come in," he said quietly. The old alien stepped inside, dripping water on the wooden floor. She carried nothing but a small satchel and a piece of broken metal hanging around her neck. It looked like part of a pendant. When she looked around the house, her expression softened. "Thank you, human," she said, bowing her head slightly, her voice gentle but old, as if carrying centuries of pain. Lily ran to grab a blanket and placed it over the alien's shoulders, smiling shyly. "What's your name?" Lily asked. The old alien looked at her with kind but tired eyes. "You may call me Sarah," she whispered. "I once was someone important long ago." Mark frowned, sitting down across from her. "Long ago? Where are you from?" he asked cautiously. Sarah didn't answer. She only stared into the small fireplace, the orange flames dancing in her eyes. "I am far from home," she said finally. "And hunted by those I once trusted?" Her words made Mark tense up. "Hunted?" he repeated. Sarah nodded slowly. "I didn't mean to bring danger to your door. Human, but I had nowhere else to go." Outside, thunder shook the windows, and for a moment, the house lights flickered. Mark glanced at Lily, then back at the alien. His mind raced. Torn between fear and compassion, she looked so weak, so alone. Something inside him couldn't turn her away, not when he himself knew what it felt like to be lost. "You can stay the night," he said finally. "But at sunrise you leave, all right?" Sarah gave a faint nod. "At sunrise," she repeated softly, as if those words carried a secret weight. Later that night, while Lily slept in her small room, Mark checked the windows, making sure everything was locked. He glanced at Sarah sleeping near the fire, her breathing shallow, her skin faintly glowing under the light. In her sleep, she whispered something in an alien tongue, soft, sad words that sounded like a farewell. But what Mark didn't notice was the small blinking light under her satchel, a signal device half broken, but still sending out a faint pulse into the dark sky. Miles above in the storm clouds, a cloaked alien ship caught the signal. Inside, shadowy figures turned toward a glowing screen showing the coordinates of Mark's farmhouse. One of them hissed, "We found her," down below. Mark stared at the old alien, unaware that his simple act of kindness had just drawn the attention of something dangerous. The night outside was no longer just a storm. Something was coming, and by morning, everything he knew would change forever. The morning came quietly. Golden sunlight spilling through the dusty curtains. Mark woke early, as always, fixing the broken water pipe outside before Lily woke up. For a moment everything seemed peaceful. The storm was gone, and the sky above the small farm shimmered with soft blue light. He could almost forget about the strange guest sleeping beside his fireplace. When he stepped back inside, the old alien Sarah was already awake, sitting calmly at the table. Steam rose from the cup of tea Lily had made for her. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted it, her long fingers curling around the cup with care. Lily sat beside her, talking with excitement. Daddy? Sarah knows stories from other stars. She said she's seen planets with floating oceans. Mark gave a polite smile, trying to hide his unease. He still didn't trust her fully, but seeing how gentle she was with Lily made it harder to keep his guard up. You slept okay? He asked, keeping his tone neutral. Sarah nodded. Your home is kind, she said softly. Few humans still show kindness to strangers. Mark shrugged. Not many strangers show up in storms, he replied. For a few seconds their eyes met, hers deep silver, his tired brown, and something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't fear anymore, but curiosity, maybe even respect. After breakfast, Sarah stepped outside, looking toward the far hills where the morning mist still lingered. She whispered something in her alien tongue, and for a brief second, the ground beneath her shimmered faintly. Mark noticed the light but said nothing, thinking it was just the sun reflecting off dew. But Sarah's expression changed, worried, alert, as if she felt something distant approaching. Lily ran out laughing, chasing her small drone toy across the field. Her laughter broke the tension, but Sarah's gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. Mark followed her eyes and saw nothing unusual, just the normal dusty plains. Still, something in her look made him uneasy again. Later that morning, Mark went to the barn to fix his power generator. When he opened the control box, he froze. Something was wrong. A faint hum pulsed through the wires. Different from normal electricity, it was like a signal interference. He frowned, tracing the wire until he found a small metal piece stuck near the back panel. Blinking faintly blue, he pulled it out, confused. It wasn't from any tech he owned. He turned to call out, but Sarah was already behind him. Her eyes locked on the small device in his hand. Where did you find that? She asked sharply, her tone suddenly strong. Not soft like before. Mark blinked, surprised by her sudden authority. In the generator, he said slowly. You know what it is? Sarah reached out, taking it carefully, her face pale. It's a tracker, she whispered. They found me faster than I thought. Her hands shook, and for the first time, Mark saw true fear in her eyes. Who found you? He demanded. Who's coming? She looked at him, voice trembling. The ones I escaped from, hunters from my own kind, they don't forgive betrayal. Mark's stomach tightened. You mean, you brought them here? To my home, to Lily? Sarah lowered her head, guilt washing over her face. I didn't mean to, she said quietly. The signal must have survived the storm. I thought it was destroyed, Mark stepped back, his voice low and angry. You need to leave, he said. Now I've got a kid to protect. But before she could answer, Lily's scream echoed from outside. Daddy, look! Mark ran out, his heart racing above the hills. 3 dark shapes cut through the sky. Sleek alien crafts, silent but fast, heading straight for the farmhouse. The sunlight flashed across their metal hulls, marking them with the same symbol as the broken pendant around Sarah's neck. Mark's breath caught. They're here for you, he said. Staring at her, Sarah's voice trembled. And they'll destroy anything in their way. Without another word, Mark grabbed Lily's hand and shouted, Get inside. Sarah followed, her old frame surprisingly quick. The crafts roared overhead, their engines leaving trails of blue fire as they circled the property. Scanning the ground inside, the small house shook, dishes rattling, dust falling from the ceiling. Lily clung to Mark's leg. Terrified, what do they want? Mark shouted. Sarah looked out the window, her eyes glowing brighter than before. They want me, but they'll kill anyone who hides me. Mark clenched his fists, anger replacing fear. Then they'll have to go through me, he muttered. Sarah turned to him, her expression filled with something strange, respect, sorrow, and hope all at once. Human, she said softly. You have no idea what you're standing against. Outside, a deep hum grew louder. The ships were landing, dust swirled, light flared, and Sarah's pendant began to pulse in rhythm with the noise. Mark didn't notice, but Lily did, her eyes wide as she whispered, Daddy. Her necklace is glowing. Sarah looked down at it, her face pale. It's not just a symbol, she murmured. It's a key. Before Mark could ask what she meant, a blinding light filled the window. The aliens had arrived, and the fight for survival was just beginning. The air trembled as the alien crafts landed near the barn, their engines hissing like serpents. Mark shielded Lily behind him, heart pounding, dust swirling through the broken windows. He could see tall figures stepping out, armor black as the night sky, eyes glowing red through helmets, moving with cold precision. They weren't here to talk, they were here to take. Sarah stood near the fireplace, her silver eyes reflecting the glow from outside. She seemed suddenly older and younger at once. Her frail body straightened, her voice steady and clear. "They found me sooner than I hoped," she whispered. "And they will burn this place to ash." Mark turned sharply. "You're not going anywhere near my daughter, do you hear me?" Sarah's gaze softened. "I don't wish harm on her," she said. "But if they catch me here, no one survives." Her trembling hands clutched the glowing pendant, the light pulsing faster with every heartbeat. Outside, one of the armored aliens raised a hand, and the ground around the house shook violently. Mark grabbed his plasma tool, old, low-powered, barely useful against raiders, and muttered, "Guess we'll test human stubbornness today." Lily clung to his leg, whispering, "Daddy, don't go." He knelt, brushing her hair back, his voice calm even though his heart raced. "I won't let anyone hurt you, okay? Stay behind Sierra." He pushed open the door and stepped outside, the wind slicing against his face. The leader of the alien squad approached slowly, his armor marked with silver stripes. "Human," the alien hissed through a metallic voice modulator. "Surrender the fugitive and your offspring lives." Mark stared at him, jaw tight. "She's under my roof," he said, "and I don't hand over guests to murderers." The alien tilted his head, almost amused. "You defend her?" "You don't even know who she is, I don't need to," Mark said quietly. "You came with guns. That's enough for me." The leader raised his hand to give the order. But before he could speak, a deep hum vibrated through the air. The ground beneath Sierra glowed. An energy rippled outward from her pendant. Inside the house, light burst from her palms, weaving like silver fire through the cracks of the wood. The alien stepped back in shock as symbols of light spread across the dirt, forming a protective ring around the farmhouse. Mark turned, eyes wide. "What are you doing?" Sierra's voice echoed like two tones overlapping, human and alien together. "Protecting what I should have protected long ago." The energy flared brighter, and the first alien fired a plasma shot toward the house. The beam hit the invisible barrier with a crackling sound, deflecting harmlessly into the air. Lily screamed, covering her ears, but Mark stood frozen, watching as the old alien he thought was frail now stood tall like a warrior from a forgotten age. Outside, the aliens regrouped. "She's activating the relic!" One shouted, "Then destroy it!" Another yelled, aiming heavy cannons. Mark rushed back inside, shouting over the roaring sound. "What is happening?" "What are you, Sarah?" Her eyes turned to him, glowing like molten silver. "I was once a guardian," she said, "of something your kind would call a world key, a force that opens and seals stars." Mark couldn't believe what he heard. "You mean, you're not just an old traveler?" Sierra shook her head slowly. "I am the last of the Astran keepers. My people betrayed their oath. They wanted the key's power for conquest. I ran. I hid among the humans." The walls shook again, louder this time. The alien ships powered up heavy weapons, blue light building in their cannons. Sarah looked out the window, her face grim. "They will break through soon." Mark grabbed his daughter and pulled her behind the cellar door. "You stay down there," he told Lily, "no matter what happens." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Daddy, don't leave," Mark smiled faintly. "I have to buy you both time." As he shut the door, Sarah looked at him with quiet admiration. "Humans," she whispered, "always choosing courage over logic." Outside, the ground exploded as the alien cannons fired again. The barrier cracked, flickering like shattered glass. Sarah fell to one knee, clutching her chest, her energy fading. Mark ran to her side. "Stay with me." She looked at him weakly. "There's one way to end this, but I can't do it alone." "What do you need?" he asked without hesitation. Sarah met his eyes. "Your blood." Human essence carries the resonance that can complete the seal. Mark didn't understand the science, but he saw the honesty in her gaze. He rolled up his sleeve. "Do it," he said. Sierra pressed her glowing hand against his arm, and light spread through his veins like liquid fire. He gasped but didn't pull away. Outside, the aliens advanced, shouting in their tongue, aiming for the final shot. Then suddenly everything went still. Sarah rose, her form surrounded by a swirling aura of silver and gold. Mark beside her, glowing faintly with the same energy. She raised her hand and the sky itself seemed to bend. A beam of light erupted upward, piercing the clouds. The alien ships tried to flee, but their systems froze mid-air, engines dying one by one. The light faded slowly, leaving silence behind. The ships crashed into the far hills. Smoke rising, Sarah fell to the floor, trembling. the pendant dimming to gray. Mark caught her before she hit the ground. "You're safe now," he said softly. But she shook her head, whispering, "No, this is only the beginning. They'll send more." And somewhere beyond the horizon in the vast dark of the stars, something ancient stirred awake, something that had been waiting for the key to shine again. The world outside the farmhouse lay silent after the crash, smoke coiling from the hills where the alien ships had fallen. Mark stood at the doorway, his heart pounding, the smell of burnt metal filling the air. The ground still shimmered faintly from Sayara's strange light, but it was fading fast like the last breath of a dying star. Inside, Sayara lay weak on the floor, her hands trembling, the once bright pendant now dull gray. Lily crawled out from the cellar, eyes wide with worry. Is she okay, Daddy?" Mark knelt beside Sarah, checking her pulse, which flickered faintly under her cold skin. "She's alive," he said softly. "But she's burning up inside, like her energy's draining." Sayara opened her eyes slowly, voice cracked and tired. "The seal held, but not for long," she whispered. "They'll send more. Stronger ones. They always do." Mark shook his head, frustrated. "You need rest, not war talk," he muttered, carrying her to the couch. But she grabbed his arm weakly, her grip surprisingly strong. "You don't understand. Human, when they realize I use the key, the whole fleet will come." Mark stared at her, disbelief and exhaustion fighting in his eyes. "You're saying those ships were just the beginning?" She nodded faintly. "Scouts only. They were testing if I still had power." Lily brought a wet cloth, pressing it gently to Sarah's forehead. "Don't talk," the little girl said softly. "Just rest, okay?" Sarah looked at her, her expression softening. "You remind me of my own daughter," she murmured, voice fading. Lily blinked. "You have a daughter?" A single tear shimmered in Sayara's alien eyes. "Had," she whispered, "long ago, before the wars began." Hours passed in uneasy quiet. Mark went outside, repairing what little he could, his mind spinning. He thought about the ships, about the way the sky lit up when Sarah used her power. He didn't understand how one old alien could hold such force, but deep inside, he knew she wasn't lying as the sun dipped low. Painting the horizon orange, Lily sat by Sarah's side. She hummed a small tune her mother once sang. Her voice innocent and calm, Sayara smiled weakly. "Your song, it carries warmth," she whispered. "Something your kind does better than any species I've met." Lily giggled. "Daddy says humans are stubborn and kind." "Mostly stubborn," Sarah chuckled softly. "Yes, that's what saves you." Suddenly the lights flickered again. Mark rushed inside. "Power grids fluctuating," he said. Sayara sat up slowly, eyes narrowing. "It's not the grid. They found us again." Before he could respond, a deep rumble echoed across the land. Mark ran to the window high above. Tiny dots glowed in the night sky, multiplying fast. At first he thought they were stars until one of them moved, then another. And then the whole sky shimmered with approaching vessels. There weren't 3 or 4 this time. There were dozens, an entire fleet descending from orbit. Mark felt his chest tighten. "Why us? Why here?" he asked in disbelief. Sarah's voice was heavy with guilt. "Because of me." "And because the key reacted to you?" Mark turned sharply. "To me?" She nodded slowly. "When you bled, when I touched your blood, the key bonded with you. It sees you as its co-bearer now." Mark stared at her, stunned. "You're saying they'll come after me too?" Sarah nodded weakly. "Yes. And your daughter. She carries your energy line. They'll sense her too." Lily's small voice broke the silence. "Are they bad people, Sarah?" Sarah looked at her gently. "Not people, child. But once they were like me before power turned their hearts to stone." Outside, a blue beam flashed across the horizon. The first warning shot. Mark grabbed Lily and pulled her close. "We can't stay here," he said firmly. Sarah's eyes glowed faintly again. "There's an old human outpost beyond the ridge," she said. "If we reach it, there's a transmitter hidden underground. It can call help." "Real help." Mark didn't hesitate. "Then we move now." He grabbed a backpack, packed some food, water, and Lily's small blanket. Sarah tried to stand, her legs shaking. "I can walk," she whispered. Though her body said otherwise, Mark didn't argue. He lifted her arm over his shoulder, supporting her as they stepped into the night. Behind them, the first ships entered the atmosphere, their engines glowing blue, their formation perfect and terrifying. Dust blew across the fields as the air vibrated with low thunder. Lily looked back at their home, the only place she'd ever known, watching it disappear behind the dark horizon. "Daddy," she whispered, "will we come back?" Mark's throat tightened, but he managed a soft answer. "We'll come back when it's safe, sweetheart." Sarah looked at the girl, her silver eyes reflecting both sadness and strength. "You have his courage," she said quietly, "and you'll need it soon." As they reached the ridge, the sky exploded with light. Flames streaked across the horizon as the alien fleet spread wide. Encircling the valley below, Mark turned to Sarah, breathing hard. "You better have that transmitter ready, because if we don't call someone fast—" She stopped him, pointing toward the dark mountains. "There," she whispered, "beneath the stones. The last signal tower built by your kind before the frontier fell." Mark stared in disbelief. "How do you know about that?" Sarah's voice dropped low. "Because I helped humans build it." Before he could react, the sky roared again. The fleet had begun their descent, their searchlights sweeping across the plains, hunting for them. And in that instant, Mark realized something he had never thought possible. This old alien wasn't just running from her enemies, she was running towards something. Something hidden, something ancient, and somehow, he and his daughter were now part of it. The night sky burned with light as the alien fleet spread across the horizon, their massive ships gliding silently like dark angels. Mark, Lily, and Sarah pushed forward through the wind and dust, every step toward the ridge a battle against exhaustion. The land ahead glowed faintly under twin moons, revealing the broken outline of something buried in the earth. A tower. Half swallowed by time, Sarah's breath came heavy, her cloak torn, her silver skin dulling. "We're close," she said weakly. "I can feel the transmitter's core beneath the rocks." Mark tightened his grip on her arm. "Then we dig," he said firmly. Setting Lily down on a flat stone, Lily looked around nervously, clutching her blanket. "Daddy." "I hear humming." Mark stopped, listening. She was right. A faint mechanical hum pulsed from beneath the ground, steady and rhythmic, like the slow heartbeat of something ancient still alive. He began clearing the dirt with his hands, revealing strange metal carvings, human symbols mixed with alien glyphs. "What is this place?" he asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. Sarah knelt beside him, touching one of the symbols. "This was a unity site," she whispered, "where humans and my people once worked together." Mark froze. "Worked together? You mean humans knew about your kind before the wars?" Sarah nodded slowly. "Long ago, before my people fell to greed and your kind withdrew into silence, we shared knowledge. This tower was meant to be a bridge between our worlds." She ran her fingers over the markings, her eyes reflecting old memories. "But the alliance ended. Your ancestors sealed this place and swore never to trust us again." Mark frowned. "If humans built this, maybe there's still power left in it." He found a hidden panel and forced it open. Inside were ancient circuits still faintly glowing blue. He connected the loose cables from his farm repair kit, sparks flying. Suddenly the ground trembled, and a column of light rose from the buried tower. Illuminating the night, Lily gasped, "Daddy!" "It's beautiful." But Sarah's face darkened. "It's also a signal," she said grimly, "and not just to friends." Mark looked up at the sky. The nearest alien ships had already turned, changing course toward the ridge. "How long until they get here?" he asked quickly. "Minutes," Sarah said. "Maybe less." Mark's mind raced. "Then tell me what to do." Sarah moved to the base of the tower, her trembling hand pressing against an alien rune. "The transmitter still works, but it needs 2 life forces. 1 human, 1 Astron," she explained. "That's why it was built here, on this world." She looked at him with tired eyes. "If we connect it, we can call the old human defense satellites. Your kind left them in orbit centuries ago, sleeping, waiting for a signal that never came." Mark blinked. "You're saying there are weapons up there?" Sarah nodded faintly. "Powerful ones. Enough to protect this planet, but the code to wake them needs both of us." Mark looked down at Lily, who stared at them both, confused but brave. He knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, you need to hide behind those rocks, okay? Don't come out until I call you." She nodded, clutching her blanket tight, whispering, "Be careful, Daddy." As the alien ships descended, beams of light scanning the ground, Mark placed his hand on the metal core. "All right," he said. "Tell me what to do." Sarah pressed her glowing palm next to his. The moment their skin touched the metal, the tower roared to life, sending shockwaves through the earth. Electric light surged up their arms, connecting human and alien energy in a spiral of gold and silver. Mark gritted his teeth, pain shooting through his veins. Sarah shouted, "Don't let go! It's reading your essence, almost there." Above them, the lead alien ship opened its side cannons, firing plasma toward the ridge. Explosions rocked the ground, flames lighting up the sky. Mark's arms shook violently, but he didn't pull away. He shouted over the thunder. "What happens when it connects?" Sarah's eyes blazed, her voice echoing through the wind. "The sky remembers." The light from the tower shot upward, piercing the clouds and reaching into space. High above the planet, something stirred. Ancient satellites, forgotten and drifting, suddenly powered up. Their lights turned from red to blue, targeting systems awakening after centuries of silence. The alien fleet hesitated, sensing the change, then from orbit, a rain of light descended. Precision strikes from old human defense weapons. The night exploded in fire. Each alien ship caught in beams of pure energy, one by one burning out and crashing into the valleys below. Mark fell to his knees as the power faded, smoke rising from his hands. Sarah collapsed beside him, her eyes dim but peaceful. "You did it," he said breathlessly. She smiled faintly. "We did it." The bond worked. Lily ran out, hugging her father tightly, tears of relief in her eyes. But Sierra's breathing slowed. She reached out a trembling hand, touching Lily's cheek gently. "You have a brave heart," she whispered. "Never lose it." Mark turned to her, panic rising. "Hey, don't close your eyes, stay with me." But Sierra's glow faded, her silver eyes turning dull. Her pendant fell to the ground, splitting into two halves, one glowing faint blue, the other dark and cold. Mark picked it up, his voice trembling. "Sarah, no, you can't." She smiled faintly, whispering her final words. "The key is yours now, human. Protect it, protect her." Then she went still, the last of her light fading into the night. Mark sat in silence, holding the pendant tightly around him. The fires of battle burned out one by one, and high above, the ancient human satellites remained awake for the first time in centuries, watching, waiting, guarding their world once again. But deep in the shadows of the stars, far beyond their sight, a much larger fleet began to move. Their signal carried one chilling message: the key has been activated. The wind howled across the ridge as dawn crept over the smoking valley. Mark sat beside Sarah's still body, her silver skin now dull and cold. The air smelled of ash and ozone, the battlefield quiet except for the faint hum from the broken transmitter. He hadn't slept, he couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the light fade from hers. Lily sat beside him, wrapped in her blanket, holding one half of Sierra's pendant. The other half hung around Mark's neck. Still faintly glowing blue, she whispered softly, "Daddy, will she wake up?" Mark swallowed hard, his throat dry. "No, sweetheart, she's gone." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "But she said she'd protect us." Mark looked at the pendant, his jaw tight. Maybe she still will. As the sun rose higher, the valley shimmered faintly. Strange light danced across the rocks, forming shapes, circles, symbols like something ancient was still alive beneath the surface. Mark felt it too, deep inside, a pulse slow but steady. Every beat matched the glow of the pendant on his chest. He stood slowly, his hand brushing the metal, feeling warmth spreading through his veins. "What's happening to me?" he whispered. Lily looked up at him, eyes wide. "Daddy." "Your eyes, they're glowing." Mark turned toward a piece of broken metal reflecting the morning light, and froze. His pupils shimmered faint silver, just like Sierra's had. The shock made him stumble back, his hands trembling. He could feel things now, the air, the vibrations under the ground, the faint hum of energy flowing through the earth. Then a voice, not loud but soft, familiar, echoing inside his mind. "Do not fear it, Mark. The key chose you because you carry what my people lost." "Heart," it was Sierra's voice. Faint but clear, he spun around, half expecting to see her. But there was nothing, only the wind and the whisper of the ridge. He clenched the pendant, breathing fast. "Sierra, you're gone from flesh but not from essence," the voice said gently. "Our bond linked us. Now the key listens to you." Mark stood frozen, heart pounding. What do I do now?" "You protect your world," she replied, "and prepare. The fleet you destroyed was only a hand. The arm is still coming." He looked toward the sky, now clear and blue, but he felt it. Something out there. Vast and waiting, he turned to Lily, forcing a calm smile. "We need to move, sweetheart. Where? She asked softly. To the old city ruins, he said. If what Sarah said is true, there might be others who know about this, others like her. They began walking, leaving behind the ridge and the broken transmitter as they traveled across the barren plains. The land changed. Metal ruins half buried in sand, old towers covered in vines, signs of forgotten colonies where humans once lived before the frontier fell silent. By midday, they reached what was left of an ancient outpost, rusted structures, shattered windows, and a massive statue in the center. It was a human figure holding hands with an alien. Both reaching for a star between them, Lily looked up, awe in her eyes. It's beautiful. Mark nodded slowly. It's a reminder of what we lost. As they entered the outpost, lights flickered faintly inside, still running on emergency power. A voice suddenly echoed from an old speaker. Robotic but aware, identification required. Please state your code. Mark froze, then spoke carefully. Mark Lewis, human, civilian. There was silence for a moment, then the system replied. Foreign energy signature detected. Astron code fragment identified. Analyzing. The walls began to glow with faint blue light. Symbols spread across the metal, matching those on Sarah's pendant. Lily gasped. Daddy, it's just like before. A hologram flickered to life before them. An old human officer in uniform. Face lined with age, but eyes sharp. This facility is a remnant of the Unity Pact, the hologram said. And the bearer of the key stands before us once more. Mark took a step back, stunned. You know about this? The hologram nodded. Our ancestors prepared for the day the key would awaken again. If you're hearing this, the Astron Empire has returned. Mark's chest tightened. They're coming here, aren't they? The hologram's tone darkened. Yes, the Empire seeks to reclaim what they lost, the power to open and close stars. But they will not stop with your world. They will burn every system to reach it. Lily held onto her father's hand tightly. Daddy, what do we do? Mark looked at her, then at the hologram, his voice steady. Then we don't run this time. He reached into his pocket, pulling out the pendant halves and pressing them together. A surge of light filled the room, and for a second, he saw Sarah's face smiling through it. The hologram's voice rose. Activation confirmed. Human Astron link stable. Preparing planetary defense protocol. Screens lit up around the outpost, showing maps of Earth and its colonies. The hologram continued. You are now the guardian of the key. The defense grid awaits your command. Mark's voice trembled, but his eyes were firm. Then let's give them a fight they'll never forget. Far above, deep in space, enormous ships stirred, colossal vessels dwarfing the First Fleet. Their leader, a towering alien with eyes like burning suns, turned toward the planet and growled. The key has awakened in a human host, he hissed. Prepare the Harbinger. And on the ground, Mark stood beneath the rising light of the ancient system. A single father, holding his daughter's hand, about to face a war meant for gods. The sky over the colony world darkened again, not from clouds this time, but from the shadow of an approaching armada. The Harbinger fleet, miles wide, layered with living metal, descended like a silent storm, their glowing cores pulsing with power older than any human war. From the outpost, Mark and Lily stood watching through the cracked dome ceiling, light from the holographic systems flickering across their faces. Mark's heart pounded, the weight of destiny pressing on him harder than any battlefield. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't chosen for greatness. He was just a single dad who'd once struggled to feed his daughter. And yet now, he held the fate of two civilizations in his hands. The outpost vibrated as ancient machinery awoke under his touch. Holographic symbols spun in the air, circling around the pendant now fused into a glowing disk resting against his chest. Sarah's faint voice echoed in his mind, calm and steady. You are not fighting alone, Mark. The stars remember you. He closed his eyes, whispering under his breath. Then let them hear us. The defense grid activated, sending signals deep underground and far into orbit. Across the barren plains, long buried towers rose from the sand. Their tips glowing blue, massive metal rings began spinning above the planet, connecting into a shimmering shield. Lily gasped in wonder. Daddy, it's like a giant bubble. Mark smiled faintly. A bubble that fights back. But high above, the Harbinger fleet's leader watched through crimson lenses. Primitive defenses, he hissed. They think they can hide behind relics. He raised his clawed hand. Giving the command, fire. The sky lit up, streaks of plasma raining down like falling suns. The planetary shield flared bright, absorbing the first wave. The ground trembling beneath the impact. Inside the outpost, alarms screamed. Mark braced himself against the console, shouting over the noise. "Can it hold?" The holographic officer's voice crackled. "For now, but it needs direct synchronization to withstand the next strike." Mark turned toward the glowing pedestal at the room's center. It was the heart node, the control core for the entire defense network. He knew what that meant. "It needs me," he muttered. Lily clutched his arm, tears in her eyes. "Daddy, don't go." He knelt beside her, brushing her hair gently. "Listen to me, sweetheart. You stay here no matter what happens." Her voice broke. "But you said we'd go home together." He smiled softly. "We will. Just let me keep that promise." He stepped onto the pedestal, the blue light wrapping around his body like liquid flame. The key responded instantly, energy flowing through him, connecting his heart to every defense array on the planet. For a moment he saw everything, every satellite, every shield generator, every human ruin that still held a spark of life. And then he saw her, Sarah's spirit, shining within the web of light, her eyes calm and proud. "You've done what even we could not," she said, her voice echoing in his mind. "You gave the key purpose again." Mark grinned faintly. "Then let's finish it together." The outpost shook violently as the next barrage hit. Mark raised his hand, and from the planet's surface, massive energy cannons emerged. Ancient human weapons awakened after centuries of silence. The air screamed as they fired, columns of blue light piercing the sky, tearing through the enemy's lower ships like paper. Explosions lit the heavens, the shockwaves rattling the mountains. But the Harbinger leader wasn't done. He extended his claws over a massive orb pulsing at the fleet's center, an ancient Astran weapon known as the Star Maw, capable of devouring entire cities. "Let's see how much heart a human has," he hissed, activating it. The Star Maw charged, gathering red energy into a colossal beam, aimed straight at the planet. Mark felt the pressure building, the weight of it crushing his mind. His veins glowed bright, his breath turning shallow. Sierra's voice whispered, "You can't block it, but you can redirect it." He gritted his teeth. "Then I'll burn before I bow." He spread his arms. Light surging from his chest, the defense grid shifted, transforming the shield into a vast mirror of pure energy. When the Harbinger's weapon fired, the beam hit the planet's shield, then reflected, straight back toward the fleet. The explosion that followed split the sky, a shockwave so immense it could be seen from orbit. One by one, the Harbinger ships fell apart, flames consuming their engines, their war calls turning into static. The light faded slowly, leaving behind silence and drifting debris. The sky cleared, sunlight breaking through once again. Mark collapsed to his knees, his body trembling, his skin glowing faintly. Sierra's voice came one last time, soft as a sigh. "The stars are safe, Guardian. Rest now." And with that, the light around him dimmed. Lily ran to him, crying, "Daddy!" "Wake up!" She pressed her small hands to his face, tears falling onto his cheeks. The pendant around his neck flickered weakly, then stabilized. A faint heartbeat pulsed beneath her hand. He opened his eyes slowly, smiling weakly. "Hey, kiddo, told you we'd go home." She laughed through tears, hugging him tightly. Behind them, the hologram spoke softly. "Humanity owes you both a future. The key is safe for now." Mark looked toward the horizon, where the sky burned golden in his hand. The pendant shimmered faintly. Half human, half alien. One whole again. He stood, lifting Lily into his arms. Their home was gone, their world forever changed. But for the first time in a long while, he believed something he hadn't dared to believe in years. That humanity still had a place among the stars, and that kindness, even the smallest act, could shape the fate of worlds as they walked toward the rising sun. The broken world began to stir, old systems reawakening, hidden colonies receiving the signal across the stars. Humans looked up, seeing the beacon of light that meant only one thing. Humans were not done yet.